What is up, you wonderful people? It is I, Nima, and today I'm going to go over 3 different games that I've been playing and haven't reviewed. They're ones we just sort of missed along the way, so relatively new games within the last month, but just didn't end up making it to a review, I guess. Anyway, before we get into that though, please hit that like and subscribe button. That really helps me out, and that helps me be able to review more games. So anyway, let's start off with the first one, and that one is a game called Ancient Weapon Holly. Now this game for me was incredibly divisive because when I started playing it, I did not like it. I tried playing it 3 or 4 times and did not like it. But the more I kept going back to it, the more I started to slowly like it. It's a very slow-paced roguelike adventure game. In this game, you have been basically buried for tens of thousands of years. The humans found that your power was overwhelming and a little bit scary, so they separated it in these altars. Now you come back to consciousness, I suppose, and you want your power back. And the whole goal of each level is just to destroy these altars that contain some of your power. But the humans have not made it easy for you, as they've put up many obstacles, namely in the form of slayers, golems, and other obstacles for you to overcome, namely through combat, which I think is gonna be something that maybe is the most divisive thing in this game, because you see, you do have a weapon, and for most of the time you're kind of using it to mine, if you will. There's a lot of destructible blocks and things of like that nature that you're gonna have to destroy and able to get to these altars, but also some of your power is in there as well, and you can start slowly collecting it. You also get power for beating enemies, of course, and you can upgrade yourself in the middle of a level. You don't have to destroy an altar before you can upgrade yourself. And I, in fact, would argue that your blaster's best purpose is actually for mining. It doesn't work as well on enemies. What works better actually is burying them. So one of your other powers that you can do is essentially remove blocks. Now you can remove blocks on the ground so that enemies will just walk right into it, and then you can bring that block back down on their head, pretty much squishing them. And that's essentially just a one-hit kill kind of attack. And if you're curious, yes, pretty much all of them just walk straight into the hole in the ground without even a care in the world. Like, oh, hey, I could walk to the left and I'd be fine, but there's a hole, so I'm going that way. And that is pretty much how all the enemies react. And so, aside from the gameplay also being really slow, I think that there's a lot of people who are going to have problems just with the combat system alone. The rest of the game is actually pretty cool. Being able to upgrade yourself, of course, is always fun. A lot of people like the roguelike aspect of a game like this, but I would say without a doubt the divisiveness lies within that combat. And even for me, as I said when I first started playing it, I didn't really like it. Now I'm enjoying it quite a bit more. But yeah, it's going to be one that if you're interested in it, I would definitely wishlist it, wait for a sale, or just watch some more gameplay. I myself would probably give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. It's fun. It's nothing great, but it's pretty cool. So we go from relatively slow to really, really fast. The next game I'm talking about is a game called Laika Age Through Blood. Now, this is a very interesting game called a Motorvania, where it is in many ways like a Metroidvania, but you're on a bike. I personally feel like it's the love child to Excite Bike and Katana Zero or Hotline Miami, or one of those games where it's like super, super fast. You have to be incredibly accurate with almost no room for mistakes. So in this game, you play as a mother coyote who is part of a tribe that's being oppressed after an insanely egregious attack against a family member, and she decides enough is enough and she's gonna put her oppressors to rest. And to accomplish this, you're gonna have to go through multiple levels with your 2 main weapons, a revolver and your motorbike. And these 2 items work in tandem. Aside from just making you feel like a badass, the weapon obviously is your main attack, with the bike actually being an accessory to your revolver, as doing stunts and tricks will help it reload quicker, and also using the bike for things like deflecting bullets, and of course shielding you from the enemy's bullets. Now the one thing I have to say is, this game is incredibly difficult. This game is super, super hard. I can't tell you how many times I died, and no, I did not beat it. I haven't even gotten close to beating it, because it's just that difficult. It's fun for what it is. My biggest issues honestly were control. The bike itself is really difficult to get used to using, with some of it being just outright frustrating. One of the things that really got me is in each stage there's multiple levels, and you have to take little ramps to get to an ascending area. Well, to do this, you almost have to perform a wheelie, and there's so many times I missed it. Like, it was just constantly like me driving around this ramp, trying to hit it just right. Then honestly, you will get used to it, but once you do, you then have to worry about the enemy who can kill you with one shot. So essentially, you're trying to learn the mechanics and the controls of this bike, while you're also fighting incredibly difficult enemies, as well as some pretty interesting yet pretty difficult stages to traverse just on your bike alone. There's a lot of like little loop-de-loops and tricks and stuff that you have to navigate to be able to get to the enemies. So after you perform a trick that would really be difficult, and once you land said trick, you then have to attack an enemy with perfect precision. And that's if your gun was reloaded. There was many times where I would be focused on the level itself and not the enemies, trying to traverse some really difficult landscape, and then just to get to the enemy to remember, oh, my gun is not done reloading, because it does take time to reload, unless you hit a front flip, which will automatically reload your gun. But if you don't, and you hadn't been paying attention, your gun may not have been reloaded, or you could be looking at 2 or 3 enemies where you have to maybe pop a wheelie to deflect bullets, or perform a deflection, or hit an enemy, then perform a deflection, and then use the bike to shield yourself from another shot. What I'm saying is this game is incredibly difficult, but it is fun and rewarding if you're able to get to some of those more difficult levels. But for me, it just almost wasn't worth the frustration. Ultimately though, I would say the way it looks, the way it performs, all of that, I would still give it a 7 out of 10, maybe even a 7.5. And if you're into a lot of those type games, I think you're really gonna like it. I think that added difficulty of having the bike, yet also the freedom of the bike. There's just 2 different ways to look at that thing. It can be a really fun tool or a really frustrating hindrance. But I think once you master it, it becomes like its own thing, as well as having the gun and of course everything else associated with the game. But yeah, if you're into Katana Zero or Hotline Miami or some of those games like that, I think you're really gonna like the game. But if you find those type of games to be pretty difficult, this game only makes it worse with that bike and the controls and just getting used to controlling the bike. It just adds up to a lot. But yeah, so if you like those type of games, I would definitely think this is probably a 9 out of 10. If you don't, I would put it on the lower level of, yeah, maybe just pass. It's not a bad game, it's just a very difficult game. Now, the last game I want to talk about is one with very little story, almost no story at all, and that is called Balatro. Now, this is a game where you play poker, but there are little differences. Okay, there's massive differences. For one, Joker cards are something that you kick out of the deck. In fact, no, they're something you want, and they can add up to crazy multipliers. Everything ranging from like all club cards that you play will multiply by 4, or if you use all your discards, your hand will multiply by 10. Different effects that are passive like that, different multipliers to more active cards where like you get 1 more discard. Usually you have 3 discards, where basically you can take up to as many cards as you want and discard them. That counts as 1. You can do that 3 times. Now, especially in the early game, I found it easier to have more of those, so adding another discard really helped me out at times until, yeah, there was other Joker cards that showed itself that made things even better if I had no discards. And that's just the way the game is. You have to really pay attention to your Joker cards, as well as your other cards that are not just in your hand. Because aside from having your playing cards, in between each round you can add or purchase other cards. Tarot cards or celestial cards. Celestial cards for me were a game changer because they would take things like playing 3 of a kind or 2 pair or something like that will multiply it by 5 to 10, and you can actually level those up, which is also incredibly cool. So you can find yourself purchasing celestial cards and then looking to level them up by purchasing another pack and looking for the exact same celestial card. That really adds the multipliers up. And the other thing about this game is, yes, there's many elements of poker, but not poker at all. Like, I really sucked at this game when I first started playing because I tried to play it like poker. You know how you want to keep certain cards and you're planning steps ahead and all of that. Yeah, it's almost the same thing, but just with a different perspective. Paying attention more to the multipliers and being more, I would say, liberal with just throwing cards out or just using cards whenever you have them, for me really helped the game move along. But it's actually a lot of fun. It took a little bit of learning. I would say like a good 15-20 minutes of fully understanding the game before I was hooked to the game, and just it's become like something I play every night before I go to bed. I would definitely give this game an 8 out of 10. Really reaching on that 9 out of 10. It has pretty much everything you would want in that type of game, but there is a peak, there is a level where you're just like, okay, well, it gets somewhat repetitive in itself. Like, the nature of the game itself does get repetitive. Even if every hand is different, I found myself at least reaching that, and that's why it wouldn't get like a 10 out of 10. Just because of the type of game it is. But anyway, I really like it. That's one that you should definitely pick up if you're interested in it. Even if you don't like card games, I think you're going to find a lot with that one. It's one of those games that's easy to understand and very welcoming, but really difficult to master. And you'll find yourself just trying to get like insanely high scores. And at times you'll actually need those insanely high scores, but fully understanding and utilizing the strategy is your key to success. And yeah, that whole like loop becomes incredibly addictive. But anyway, those are just 3 games that I really wanted to talk about. I've been playing them for a while, different thoughts on them, meant to review them, just didn't really come up, so thought I would put that video out. I apologize for any of the audio or stop cuts or anything like that. I have one of the worst like colds I've had in a long time, so I apologize for any sounding icky or just stuttering and junk like that. But anyway, I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.